our webinar is going to look at audio systems for retail locations. We'll look at this topic from a solutions viewpoint. First, we'll start with the needs of the client and what's required to fulfill those needs. We'll also look at the needs of the venue. We'll look at examples of typical installations, how the equipment will be used to get the desired results. And we'll look at what we have at our disposal to assist us in selecting the proper equipment for the job. Then hopefully we'll have some time left over for some questions and answers. Part of finding out the needs of the client is knowing what they expect. So there's certain information we need to gather. We need to know what their business is. This is important because some businesses focus on moving boxes, whereas other businesses might be more customer-oriented. These can be quite different. One type of business might want the audio system to broadcast messages to their employees, whereas another might want to give attention to their customers. So what type of business is this? Also look at how the business is operated. Is it a single location, a mom-and-pop location? Generally, a one-off location has a greater degree of latitude, what type of equipment that they want installed, and how they're going to use it. Franchises, on the other hand, might have well-defined guidelines. Guidelines about the type of audio system that's to be installed, and also even the content that goes on that system. They may even have some templates for day parting and other things that we have to be aware of. For the physical location, what area does the client want the audio coverage to be in? Is it just inside the location, or is it inside and outside as well? Are there parking areas, any patio, or any other adjacent locations that need to be addressed? Next, we want to look at the environment. What we're talking about is the background or ambient noise in the location. Is there street noise? Is there some other noise that is areas we have to be concerned with? Look at the room, too. Is the room loud and noisy? Is it very reverberant? Or is it a well-behaved room? We also need to know the customer. Now, what we're referring to as the customer is what is the demographic of the customer? And how is the system going to be used to meet that customer? Is the system to be used for paging? Well, what areas does the paging have to be present in? Is the paging for internal paging or external as well? And how do they want to initiate the page? Are they going to use a microphone, or do they want to be able to pick up the phone and dial in for the page? What about music? Is it background music, or is it foreground music, or perhaps even a combination of both? Take into consideration, too, if there's a need for an emergency message service. If so, then we have to think of how the message will be played. Will it be from an external source, or will we have to supply some equipment to record and recall that message on demand? Let's look at the building as well. We need to document the size or the dimensions of the location to be covered. We need length, width, and height, and perhaps some other details as well. What type of ceiling, for example? Is it a drywall ceiling, or perhaps a drop ceiling with tile? Some even are open ceiling concepts. So if it's a tile ceiling or a drywall ceiling, is the area above the ceiling used as a plenum air return? These factors will often determine what type of speakers are used. What type of construction is it? This may determine the type of cabling or wiring that's used to connect the system, and the ease or difficulty of running that cable. Age of the structure, too, is important. We have to be very critical when we're dealing with things like heritage locations, where the appearance and integrity of the original design is important to the client. Look too at the effect of music. Now, studies have been done on the effect of music on customers. Without going into a lot of details, let's just say that music contributes to an environment that makes one's visit to the location more pleasant, gives it that extra experience. Type of music and volume are often determined by the target demographic group. For example, you'll have different music in a Tommy Hilfigers than you will in a Sears location. Look at the paging too. That can have an effect on the customer. We all remember the attention shoppers, there's a blue line special in aisle 2. Now, maybe the announcements are not as in your face or as bland as this, but yet PA announcements can highlight specials, can highlight new product, or draw attention to different locations in the store. Again, paging can contribute toward the customer's experience. Important information, too, is conveyed over the PA system. Checkout counter might want to call to a different department for a price check. Or an in-store pharmacy or specialty shop, perhaps the deli, might want to alert a customer that their orders are ready. Size of the location can also present some challenges. Now, smaller areas often are easier to select equipment for. They might only require a couple speakers and an amplifier, whereas larger areas can be more challenging. When we look at larger areas, such as malls and department stores, there might be high ceilings to deal with. Or maybe the ceilings are at different heights, even in the same area. Perhaps open areas or domed or vaulted ceilings in certain areas, and these can be very reverberant. Other challenges might be presented by the layout of the location. Mentions here columns, alcoves, and outlying areas. Each of these must be considered in designing the system and knowing what we're dealing with. So how do we keep track of all this information? We need to know just what questions to ask. Well, that's the advantage of being a loyal TOA customer, because we can provide you with worksheets to accomplish that and copy down the information, make sure we don't miss anything. We can even provide one-on-one assistance in helping you design your system for the project. So please contact us. We'll give you the information on how to download the worksheet and even provide some detailed information on how the system can be used for that particular location. Now that we've considered the needs of the location, we must also think about the equipment. What are we going to install, and what are we going to use to accomplish the purpose we want? Well, ceiling speakers often provide the best solution for larger areas where we want even distribution. Ceiling speakers provide tap settings which allow us to keep uniform sound in an area when considering different ceiling heights and other things like noise factors. For locations such as alcoves, patios, and the like, wall mount speakers might be the best selection. Wall mount speakers can let you direct sound to the listening field more effectively. In any given area, there might be a combination of ceiling speakers and wall mount speakers. And we need to do this because we want to accomplish a desired effect. We want the music to be just right. Let's take a look at the ceiling speaker, for example. TOA manufactures a variety of speakers for a variety of applications. This shows our F series of ceiling speakers. Now, the three speakers on the top row are full range speakers, meaning they have one driver and they cover the full frequency of sound from about 70 hertz all the way up to 20,000 hertz. The bottom three are coax speakers with a low-frequency driver and a dome tweeter. Generally speaking, for speech intelligibility, we would consider the speakers that TOA manufactures as a first choice. Now, the four speakers on the left have their own back can, if you'll notice, and That means we can use them in a plenum rated ceiling. Two speakers on the right, though they don't come with a back can, they can be fitted into a back can or a back box. Or they can be used without a back box if the application permits it. Now look at our F-Series box speakers. These too are provided for a variety of applications. Each of these speakers comes in black or white, 8 ohm or 70 volt, or weather resistant or not weather resistant. In addition, they include their own mounting hardware. The F1000 seen on the left has a 4-inch driver with a dome tweeter, and the F1300 has a 5-inch driver with dome tweeter, and the F2000 has an 8-inch driver with dome tweeter. The design, the manufacture of these boxes that these speakers are done in such a way that they're low resonance design and they provide better efficiency and lower acoustic called distortion. They have dual high-low internal protection circuits, and this, of course, provides greater reliability. Remember, TOA provides a 5-year warranty. Now, some areas might require pendant or projection speakers. These models are available as full range or as coaxial versions. The pendant speaker has a 16-foot suspension cable included, and that permits you to hang the speaker down to the level of the lights or to another predetermined level so that you get the sound in the sound field that you want. The same speaker is also available in a projection speaker model, as shown in the PJ304. This has an articulating mount that will permit you to aim the speaker in virtually any direction. Now, both models are designed to look like elegant light fixtures. Both of them are paintable to match the decor. Now, think about these features. This will contribute towards an interior design that will satisfy the client. It'll also help you to satisfy some architects who want clean lines and flowing decor in what they have specified. For areas that require more intensity of sound, or for foreground music rather, we also have to look at providing subwoofers. Shown here are just two of the models we supply. The HB1 is an in-wall or in-ceiling model, and the FB100 is a freestanding model. So depending on your needs, you can select one or the other. For larger installations, we also have the FB120 subwoofer. And for really large jobs, you can select from the SRC15B or the SRA18B subwoofers. So TOA provides a number of solutions depending on your needs. Now that we have our speakers selected, how are we going to power them? Well, shown here are our mixer amps. If there's just one sound source, such as background music, and we don't want anything else put in that, then we provide a BA line of amps with a single input. It's a single line level input and comes out to a 70-volt output. Most applications, though, might need a number of inputs. You may have a microphone or a number of different music sources, and you need more than one input. Well, our BGM line of mixer amps will provide that. Our 700 and 900 series amplifiers also provide multiple inputs. Now, if you notice, the BGM and the 700 series both have one module slot, so you can put a variety of our modules in there depending on what you're hoping to do. It might be message repeating, it might be to EQ a particular speaker. And the 900 series amplifier is a totally module frame, so you need to put modules in, and there are various modules for line level, mic level, for message repeating, etc. Then we go to our 9000 M2 series. This is a digital matrix mixer, and it comes in a variety of applications. It comes as a standalone mixer, for example, which is the M9000M2. It can also be available with a single channel or dual channel amplifiers. This is a modular design, has up to 8 inputs and 8 outputs. Top row in this scene shows the input modules and the output modules. The 3 wall controllers showing on the bottom left provide controllability for various functions on the mixer, and these are directly connectable to the mixer. The 3 wall controllers showing on the right, the ZM9011, 9012, and 9013, they interface with the remote control module shown on the top right, the RC001T. Now these 3 controllers connect by Cat5, and they can be daisy chained, meaning that you can put 2 branches down off that module and have them 8 deep in each branch. The 9000 series modules will also work with the 900 M2 series as well. Our Class D amplifiers are often the choice for larger installations or when you're aiming for a green install. These amps are 85% efficient, and they use 30% less power than conventional amplifiers. They're available in dual or 4-channel models and available from 250 watts per channel to 550 watts per channel. And you can also select from 4 ohm or 70 volt models. What I like about these amplifiers is that you can bridge the channels for more power. You can also select to have your input go to a single channel, or you can send it to all channels if you want. That means you could have the same signal going through all channels, or you could have a different signal. Maybe you want to separate the subwoofer signal, and you can have that going through a single channel and have the other signal going through the other channels. So very versatile, very functional, and provide the right power you need. Now let's look at some of the possible venues that we can deal with. Your business might currently focus on a select group of clients. Maybe you specialize in a certain area, but perhaps you want to expand into a variety of different areas. You might want to branch out and grow your business. Well, let's look at some of the opportunities that are available. Possible retail venues. Now, this is by no means an exhaustive list, but what we're going to do, we're going to look at some of these as examples, and we're going to see how we could treat them with equipment. Let's start with small retail. This might be a convenience store or a fast food store. In either the location, we might require ceiling speakers or wall mount speakers. Could even be a combination of both ceiling and wall mount. Amplifier can be a basic unit. You might want to just provide a single input for content like background music. Or it might need multiple inputs. Perhaps you have paging or you want to use a mic. Don't forget also the opportunity to provide a CCTV system. After consulting with your client, you'll have a clearer view of what the actual needs in this environment is. The layout of the convenience store might look something like this. Note that the speakers are located over the traffic areas. This will give adequate coverage without sound being blocked by whatever is stacked on the shelves. Wall mount speakers might be placed along the walls or in the corners as shown in this example. And this will complete the coverage. Tapping the speakers at 5 to 7.5 watts should provide the necessary sound pressure level to fill this environment. A 120 watt amp, a microphone, as well as an audio source would complete this system that we depict here. Looking at the fast food layout, a little bit different. In this example, we've selected a simple rectangular fast food location with a minimum of areas in the restaurant. Now, this might vary. You may have an L shape or maybe multiple zones to deal with. Note that the speakers are kept away from the order area and are concentrated in the dining area. This can allow for a slightly louder volume setting and help create the proper mood in the restaurant. Again, corner speakers are added to complete the sound. The restrooms and the kitchen area could also have speakers, and you'll find this out from consulting with the owner what the requirements are. Not shown here are any speakers in the patio area or speakers on the outside of the building that can set the mood for the customers even before they come in the restaurant. Quite often there will be a speaker over the front door. Usually no paging is used in a fast food restaurant. However, a separate audio system might be used to call orders back to the kitchen from the order counter. This generally, though, is replaced by the POS system. Going to a small retail location, we see this typical layout. We have speakers throughout the store in the sales area. In this case, they're ceiling speakers tapped at 5 watts each. With this system, we're providing paging in addition to the music on hold. Music for background is provided by a CD player. So we're using the BG2060 because it has a remote volume ability. And the volume in the store is controlled by a 10K wall-mounted volume control. Let's look at the same area, but let's add some messaging capability. The messaging could be of a marketing nature, could highlight some product specials, or perhaps it could be from emergency messaging. In any event, what we are using is the S20S module in the module slot of the BG2060. And we can control the messages automatically by an external box, such as the TT104B, if you want to time the messages to be at specific times of the day. Or you can have a push-button wall panel, such as the ZM9003, if you want to control the playing of the messages manually. Clothing stores are a little different. You might have multiple areas, as you see here, and you may need to cover these in different zones with different content in each zone. In this case, we're using the M9000M2, and we're feeding 2 channels into a DA series amplifier. Different areas might require different speakers as well. So we're using ceiling speakers, wall-mounted speakers, pendant speakers, and projection speakers to get the right coverage. Because of the store's demographic, we have added subwoofer to get the desired effect, especially in the sales area. The music will be a little bit louder, a little more distinct beat, so you see it's not quite background music anymore. This would be how this would all come together. Notice that the subwoofers are placed in the sales area to add impact, and in this case we're using the HB1 ceiling-mounted subwoofers. There are also areas we want to add audio to, such as the fitting rooms, and even the stock room. Perhaps the manager wants some music in their office. There may also be a stock room that they need to call back to check on sizes or inventory, and so we could add a microphone at the cashier counter for that purpose. Don't forget as well, there may also be an opportunity to add a CCTV system. This view shows how the equipment is used. We're powering the sales floor speakers off of the 70-volt output of the A9120M2. We can page into the system using the desktop mic, or if you want, we can page in by the telephone system. You'll notice the fitting room speakers, the subwoofer, and other areas can be powered by the DA250F amplifier. In this case, we're controlling the volume by connecting to the I/O contacts on the control strip of the A9120M2, and that's easy to do. Our pre-recorded special promo messages are repeated by using the S20S module in the module slot. And these modules, even though they're designed for the 900 series, will also work in the M9000 M2 system. Now this messaging is controlled again by the ZM9003 wall unit. Car dealerships likewise have some unique challenges, and they have need for public address system, and they might want to page into various areas. Showroom might be the focus, and special attention needs to be given to that area, but also to other areas as well. Is there a need for paging, for example, into the car lot to reach the salesperson? Do customers in the lounge need to be alerted when their service or repairs are completed? Paging might be required in some other special areas as well. Because of the different ceiling heights and the layout of many dealerships, then we're using a variety of speakers. Might want to use the SC paging horn to reach people in the car lot, and the CS paging horn that handles music well might be more suited for the service shop, perhaps mounted between the bays. We could also use pendant speakers in these areas, but in this example we're using the CS paging horns. This is how the layout would look. The control and even the equipment, of course, would be at the reception desk, and usually the receptionist controls all of the functions of the system. And the connections would be made like this. So we have a couple of audio inputs. Here we have music from a DT930 tuner, and audio from the promo DVD or movie could be played into the customer lounge to keep them occupied where their car is being serviced. Paging would be done over the telephone in this case, and the zones for the offices and the customer lounge would be powered from the amps built into the A9060 M2. So there's 2 amps on board, so we use those amplifiers to power these zones. Other zones be powered from a DA 4-channel power amplifier. Again, wall panels would be installed to give controllability to the system. Big box outlet stores have some similarities to large auto dealerships, but they have some differences as well. There's also some challenges with hard surfaces, high ceilings, and in this case we have aisles, and oftentimes they're running power equipment up and down the aisles. So we need to be conscious of these things. What we have done in the large retail store, we have zoned it out into 6 different zones, and this adds some convenience to laying the system out. Of course, this would be in accord to how the system is going to be used. In this view, we see 6 zones powered from the A9120, DHM2, and the DA250FH amplifier. Because ambient noise levels can vary in this type of environment due to activities, and because of the number of customers varies during the day and even the days of the week, we have added ambient noise sensors and have set up the system to compensate for these fluctuations in traffic and background noise. Ceiling speakers being used here are the F2852, tapped at 15 watts, and this is a high ceiling speaker. And we're doing that because we want to get the proper sound level at the listening area, which is usually around 5 feet. An alternate would be used to use pendant speakers, but because we're usually running power equipment to get stuff off of shelves, pendant speakers might be an obstruction to that. So we're using the high ceiling speakers. Wall-mounted speakers could also be used in certain areas, and we have to keep that in mind, what the options are. Paging, again, is by telephone. So we're using the ZP001 telephone paging module in the 9000 M2, and that really works well because we can page into various zones, up to 8 zones with this module. Depending on the size of the box store, the number of DA series amplifiers may vary. In this case, we're running 6 zones, so we're using one DA 250 FH amplifier. Going to the supermarket now, not to shop, but to look at what equipment we use. It's a lot like a big box store, but in this case, we can use the pendant speakers and the projection speakers quite effectively. Here we see a variety of speakers in different areas depending on the use and the sound levels required. Might have the loading dock, the car lot in some cases, the checkout, various areas that we need to address. So the layout in a supermarket would look something like this. And you might notice it's like a large convenience store. We have the aisles and the traffic areas. So again, we place the speakers over the traffic areas so that we are not obstructed by anything stacked on top of the shelves. And there might be separate departments such as deli or meat or seafood, various other areas, maybe even a pharmacy that needs to have their own zone of sound. Stock room and loading dock should also be included, and oftentimes these areas would be zoned out so that paging can be done into those areas. In the layout, we see we have divided the store into these zones, and just in a graph to make it easier. This allows us to use the multi-channel amplifier and permit paging into different zones. Because of the high ceilings, we've tapped the speakers higher than lower ceiling settings. So you see they're at 15 watt. For the main part of the supermarket, we would use the pendant speakers PE304 and get the sound closer to the customer and possibly use lower tap settings. And if we did that, we'd be able to use less power in the amplifiers. But for cases of this scenario, we're using the ceiling speakers. The SC630T speakers were selected to provide enough impact for paging into the loading dock and the parking area if that is necessary. For the stock room, the F1300WT speakers were used to provide paging and also background music into that area. Pre-recorded messages are stored on the S20S module, and we're using that again. In this case, we're triggering those messages with a ZM9003, and usually this is in the manager's office so that they can trigger the messages on a regular basis or whenever they're required. Different areas could have access to paging, as showing, or the paging could be over the telephone using the ZM module. In this case, you see the paging, the seafood, the office page, the meat, the deli, all have their own microphones. Shopping malls are larger still, so they present their own challenges. Usually we're dealing with very large areas, long runs of cable to reach all the areas. Many zones might be involved, and there might be some unique requirements for each of those zones. For example, on weekdays in the mornings, there might be little traffic and background noise would be low. On the weekends or evenings, traffic might be heavy, and the ambient noise level then would rise. So we have to compensate for that. Larger malls like the West Edmonton Mall have installed ambient noise sensors wired back to the M9000 M2 series mixer to compensate for these changes in background noise. Some of the equipment selected for malls might include the usual assortment of ceiling speakers, and for some areas, wall-mounted speakers might be used. Large open atrium areas intended for special functions like presentations, fashion shows, or seasonal functions might require the HX5 speaker. So that would be a good fit for these areas. And usually that would be on a separate zone, but it could be on the main system zone. These are good selections because it allows you to control the sound field and reduce or eliminate any reverberance that there might be in a larger area. Some malls have indoor parking, so it might require a PA speaker as well as a CCTV system, Or even if this is the case, think about our intercom systems. They come in very handy when we're dealing with enclosed parking that's usually in larger malls. From this view, we see we're dealing with a mall with different levels. So it's a very large mall, and a lot of these malls have corner stores, referred to as anchor stores, and the layout would be something like this. So we have the department stores or the anchor stores in the corners, and we have a number of levels of corridors. In this example, we have corridors that are oval in shape, stores around both sides and on the ends, and usually an open area in the center to below. Might be a number of these shop areas separated into various wings leading off of the anchor stores. Ceilings are usually at about 16 to 20 feet. So using the F2852 speakers, we can place these 20 feet apart and get adequate coverage. With the corridors running 150 to 120 feet, this requires a number of speakers. Since background music might be the prime concern, speakers can be tapped at 7.5 watt each, or you might even go lower depending on the requirement. In this view, we see how the area is configured. We have selected the M9000M2 series mixer, and we're using a number of DA series 4-channel power amplifiers. We're working with a 3-level mall, so each level of each wing could be powered by a single channel on the power amp. In selected areas, usually the food court or the atrium, we're installing ambient noise sensor microphones and control the volume of these zones automatically by the way we program the M9000M2 mixer. One of the spare channels of a power amp could be used to power the speakers in the parking area. And special paging messages could be pre-recorded and stored on the S20S module and triggered as needed. All page messaging can be by microphone or an all-call. A connection to the fire alarm system may be a requirement in your area, and this can mute the system or even supplement any emergency broadcast into the mall area. So you need to check with the administration to see what the requirements are. The M9000 allows this configuration. Now we want to look at the restaurant area. We've already looked at the fast food, and we're going to consider something a little bit more like casual fine dining. We may have a number of sources for audio. We'll also have different areas that will receive specific audio signals. And there might be background music that will be in the dining area, for example, and there might be other things going on in the bar. May have a sporting event from a satellite receiver being broadcast. Microphones calling out orders back to the kitchen or telling the waiting customers that the table is ready might also be in use. Even a jukebox might be in the mix, and we can set up or play the jukebox instead of listening to the background music. With the correct modules and interfaces, all of this can be accomplished by using the M9000M2 mixer. For the restaurant bar, we're using an A9060M2 DH digital mixer amp. So this is a 2-channel on board of 70 volt each, and they're at 60 watt each. We're also using a DA500 4-channel low-high power amp. This is 4 channels of 500 watts per channel, and they can either be used as 70 volt or as 8 ohm amplifiers. The 2 onboard amplifiers of the A9060 are serving the waiting area in the kitchen, and we're using microphones to page into those areas. And usually this is paging from the reception station or paging from the galley into the kitchen. We've installed 2 F2000 speakers in the bar. with an FB120 subwoofer. These are both at 8 ohms, so we're running those off of our DA500 amplifier. Two of the channels of the power amp are used to power the speakers on the patio and the dining area. These speakers are 70-volt speakers, so we're able to use two of those channels for 70-volt application. Wall controllers ZM9014 are used to select music and content in the dining area and into the bar. The jukebox input, in this case, we're assigning as a priority 2 on the M9000 mixer part of our amp, so it'll override the background music. Audio feed from the satellite input will be assigned priority 1, and maybe they want this for special sporting events or special events that they want to broadcast over their system. So setting it up this way, then their priority 1 would not be overridden by the jukebox signal, and allow them the flexibility of controlling their system. So when dealing with larger areas, oftentimes we need some help in laying the system out. And so what we have is our SPV software from TOA. It's a free download from a website, very effective in showing speaker layout and the coverage of each speaker. For information on this, please visit our website and see how you can download this free. The information on how to download it is available, and we can give you that. It's on the bottom of the screen, but you can call us later to get that specific web address to download this software.